hi. Everyone's like, hi, hi, hi. Please rise. Kidding. I may sit down, I may stand up. I don't know. I can't decide. Oh, the lights are so bright. I can't see you until I move forward. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. It's really fun to be back here in Miami. It's a really, really cool town. Very humid, but really awesome. How many people are locals, by the way? Any locals? Lots of locals? How many people are repeat offenders to this con? Like how many people, it's like, oh, this is my 8th or whatever. Awesome. How many people, real quick, I like to do this. How many people are here for the first time? Show of hands. Now, among those hands that are up, show me which one of you for whom this is your very first con. Oh, wow, there's a few. Awesome. Okay, so everyone look around at the people that are holding up their hands now. And everyone's like, yeah. And single them out. I'm kidding. No. No, I mean, take a look at them and get to know them. These are like, let's welcome them into the family, guys. This is their first con. Guys, welcome to convention life. It's awesome. If any of you are here with your parents or aunts, uncles, grandparents, or whatever, thank you. Con parents, we love you because you are awesome and supportive, and we need support. Speaking of support, I just want to mention this because this is the best news ever to wake up to, but the Supreme Court has now ruled gay marriage is not bannable. I'm so happy. That makes being gay a little easier. Little easier. I love it. But I just want to get that out there. I was at breakfast this morning and I'm like, oh! And everyone in the restaurant could tell I was gay. Because I had one of those gay moments where I'm like, oh my God. I mean, awesome, yeah. Manly. Cool. So this is a Q&A, and I tend to ramble, so do forgive me if I go on and on. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen me do Q&As before or have watched many of the YouTube videos where I make a jackass out of myself. This is going to be much the same. I do have a couple of guidelines to lay down before we get started because I've done a lot of these, and so I've sort of kept a tally of what helps things run smoothly. So rule number 1, let's avoid the favorites game. Everyone knows what I mean by that, right? It means questions like, what's your favorite this, what's your favorite that, are impossible for me to answer because I am riddled with anxiety at the prospect of having to rate my experience of things such as, what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, and I feel like, God, I don't know. I would basically be screwed on a desert island, okay? If you only had 3 things to take, I don't know. Why would I be on the island? I don't understand this. So if you have like what's your favorite this, my advice is to kind of reword the question so it's more about, what would you say was the most memorable aspect of playing this character or liking the color purple? I mean, whatever, like you can be creative. I trust you to be creative. Keep me on my toes. I like being on my toes, and you guys are really, really good at that, so I'm expecting great things. Also, no autographs now. Like there are autograph sessions all weekend. I'm here all weekend, but now's not the time. I like to stay up here. You stay. Everyone can stay seated, and just a Q&A. It's a conversation. I'm lazy too. I don't want to get up and be like, yeah, okay, cool. Also, please, for the love of God, don't ask me to give you a piggyback ride, tie your shoes, fix your bow tie, sing happy birthday to you, call your mother or your friend or whatever and propose to them. It's about, please, God, no. It happens. It really happens. I made the mistake once of wearing a pair of bunny ears because someone wanted me to do it. Yeah, super cute until suddenly they expect you to do something like that at every single con. And you're like at Miami, you're like, wow, I'm now wearing 8 pieces of clothing I didn't walk into this room with, and it's hot outside. Don't make me do stuff. So let's keep the requests to a minimum, only because it's kind of, I always feel like on the spot. I love when people are like, hey, can you take 5 of your most difficult characters, put them in a room together, and improvise? I'm like, no. So I like more kind of, I'm a talker, as you may have noticed, so I like to talk about my experiences and some things, and I wouldn't say that I'm wise or very worldly, but I do know how to talk and tell a good story. So yeah, ask me a question that I can talk about, and that's awesome. So let's keep the requests like nil. None of those, please. Also, be creative. If you've heard me answer the question you're burning to ask on another panel or on YouTube or something, see if you can't think of a new question. I promise you the answer has not changed unless you're here to fact check me. And maybe you are. But yeah, come up with new questions. I like to tell new stories, new things, but it's all cool. So also, I do occasionally let the odd curse word fly. I am who I am. I mean no offense by it. It's just I'm a little saucy sometimes. For those of you that are interested in seeing me be very saucy, I do have an 18-up panel this evening at 11 o'clock. I saw some of you clap that are certainly not 18, so I don't know what you're clapping for. They will be checking ID at the door, and there's no filming in that one. Here you can film, take pictures, that's all good, no worries. And I think that covers just about everything. If you have your hand up and I don't pick on you, please don't feel offended. I try to be as random as possible, so don't take it personally if I'm like, oh no, I don't want to answer a stupid question. It's not that, it really isn't. It's just like I'm like, you, and then you, and then you get a car, and then you get a car. No one's getting a car. So, who's got a nice juicy question we want to start with? Do you want to line up at the?
Yeah, if you guys have a question,
cool.
feel
If you
free
guys
to
want to line up to the, look at you front. You're like, I'm front row. I got this. Boom, Scout Regiment on the case. Well, cool. Let's start with you while people are lining up. What's your name, first of all? Hi.
Hi again.
It feels so weird. We're 2 feet apart from each other. We're talking to each other via microphone.
I'll see you at your autograph session again.
It's like people texting each other when they're right across the table. Sorry. What's your name? What's your name?
Karina.
Oh, I love that name. Karina. Can I say it right? Karina.
Got it.
Awesome. Nailed it. I'm a
usually
voice actor. I do that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah,
I'm kidding.
Bakano and whatnot, definitely.
So what's your question?
I lost it. Okay. So
You're like, I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to hear you say my name.
My name confused me.
I do that. I will confuse you sometimes. So be prepared to hold your own. You're doing a fine job. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. Alrighty, so my question is, when it comes to your characters, I noticed that you are very opinionated, and I'm being very kind right now.
Basically, you're saying I notice you're an asshole. You can say it. It's fine. I'm a grown man. Mm-hmm. You're like, I love you.
Alrighty, so basically you're very opinionated and more on the serious side of things. You tend to really, really think about your characters, their prospects, their backstories. You really seem to go beyond just the line itself and the inflections. Which I love that about the voice acting process and the dubbing. It's not just doing a voice, it's legitimately being an actor, which is fantastic. So I was just wondering, when it came to when you were cast for the role, watching the manga or the anime, did you tend to do that to really delve into the character, or did you like being intriguingly surprised when you first watched it or found out about it?
I love your question. That is the best first question I think I've ever gotten. Oh my God, I love you. Thank you. So I'm going to ramble a bit when I answer this question because I love acting. I love acting. I feel that I was born to do it. And I talked a little bit yesterday on the Ouran panel about how I had a very bad speech impediment when I was a kid that kind of prevented me from speaking for many years. And it was through acting that I literally found my voice, because I learned if I could recite something or commit it to memory and read off of a script or something, or really inhabit the mind of some other person, basically if I could play pretend, fancy way of saying pretend, the stutter and the speech impediment tended to disappear. So acting helped me learn how to speak to other people. And so I was very indebted to it for that reason. And as I still learn, I still take classes all the time. I take workshops because I love to go. I mean, there's so many different theories about how it works and what to do, and I love to keep myself just sort of in that process of always learning, because I don't feel like acting, I feel there are very few skill sets you can just learn in a couple of years and then boom, you'll never learn anything again. Everything is kind of a continuing education, so I always jump at the chance to take a workshop or a class or to go back to my roots and do something on stage or whatever. But the real appeal of acting, I think, across the board for anybody who's involved in the craft is you're being honored with the chance to tell someone else's life story. In some way, even if it's a fictional person, they're still alive. They may not have actually have lived at some point. They may not be a historical person, but they're alive. They're alive, and they have a life in the audience, the people that take them into their hearts. And getting to be part of that process in some way is a huge honor, and I take it very, very seriously. So I always try to think about my characters, particularly with voice acting. Voice acting is the hardest kind of acting there is. I don't say that to aggrandize myself, because I think sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't. But in my experience, stage acting and on-camera acting, things that we associate more with traditional acting, are comparatively easier. They are still incredibly difficult to do, but good actors, I think, make it look very easy. That's a real artist. You can't see the art. It just looks organic and real. That's true of any art form, I think, and any skill. And again, I'm not talking about my own brilliance. That's not what I mean. But what draws me to it is that level of mastery that I hope to one day gain. And voice acting, of all the kinds of acting that are out there, is the hardest because with stage and camera, getting back to that point, you have so many things. The point of acting, as Sandy Meisner, who's a teacher that I follow very closely, the Meisner technique is something that I use a lot in my day-to-day voice acting career. He said he defined acting as living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And which means like you have to really inhabit this character in a way that is real in order for it to resonate with the other actors on stage and your audience, to make it real even though it's not real. It's real on another level of real that is somehow more important than just, is it factual, is it there? So in order to do that, when you're on stage, you have so many things to sort of help create that imaginative space that you need to make the performance genuine. You have costumes, you have other actors, you have sets, you have the many-headed hydra of a live audience, which is so electric.
As well.
You have facial expressions, everything. You have your whole body.
Right.
Same thing with camera. It's a little different in camera because you're kind of filming things out of sequence and it can feel a little artificial, but you still have other actors to play off of much of the time. You still have your whole body and the costume and everything. With voice acting, you have only your voice. Your body does not enter into it. Now, your body is part and parcel of how you produce the various vocal sounds you want, but the audience does not see how you're holding your hand or the way you're standing or anything like that. They hear only your voice. So if you're not able to communicate all these facets through your voice and make it believable, the performance falls flat. It's kind of the equivalent of being a master architect and someone asking you to build a house but only using a hammer. That's all. Wow. Not even nails, just a hammer. That's all you get. So anyone that ever asks me like how to get into voice acting, I'm always like, well, you have to be an actor first, because if you can't be an actor in those other contexts, voice acting is going to be twice as hard. But again, I really believe in the craft. I love it. I love getting to be other people because I feel that has helped me find myself. I think that for me, life is about cultivating a largeness of perspective so that you go through life meeting other people, really getting to know them and really trying to inhabit their consciousness in a way to enrich your own mind, your own perspective. Because everyone I've ever known who kind of clings to their kind of myopic view of the world are miserable bastards. I mean, they're like, no, I'm me and everything not me is terrible and I'm frightened of it. And so I just don't like being frightened of stuff. So I'll go out and I'll engage. And acting is just a really great way to get paid to do that.
So rather than being sporadic and being introduced to the script and then just watching the anime and letting the character play as instinct, you really want to watch it first and really go through the whole thing and know what they experience.
Sometimes. It's not always necessary. Sometimes anime is so really good at resonating right off the bat that you can read. It's kind of similar to cold reading when you go into something. I mean, when we do an anime, I rarely get the chance to watch it beforehand, and we kind of have to hit the ground running. But I often, I get called to play characters that are within what's called your wheelhouse of character types that you just know.
Yes.
And in anime, those types of characters come up again and again. Doesn't mean that they're two-dimensional. It just means like, okay, this is the role this person plays within this dynamic of people. And I'm like, okay, well, I know that. And then everything else is just kind of like the specifics, which kind of unfold as you're going. And I've just gotten really, really good at listening to the Japanese. I mean, there are things about, the Japanese seiyuu there are things about any performance, if it's good, that transcend the language barrier. And we always watch the Japanese as we're going. I'm like, okay, that's what we're going for. I just had a feeling watching that, and that's what I'm going to try to reproduce. And how did he get there? What was his thinking process? It all happened so quickly that I wish I could tell you I had this technique and I use it. It kind of happens so quickly that it's almost unconscious now. But that's just kind of the relationship I have. It's very similar to when I write too. I just kind of watch it through several times, the episode I'm writing, and then I'll mute it and just kind of let the characters talk to me in English. It just happens. The characters say, well, I want to say this. So it's literally like they're saying, well, this is what I want to say. And it just sort of happens, and my job is to transcribe what they said. And
thank you so much for answering
Thank you for your very awesome and elegantly phrased question. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, you have the cutest voice.
Oh, no, I don't, but thank you.
You do. And you're fun-sized. You're like so adorable.
I get
You're the
that
sort of
so
person I
much.
feel like a monster around. I could accidentally step on you and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I'm gigantic. If you hadn't noticed.
Compared to me, yes. My question is kind of personal, so I understand if you don't want to answer it.
All questions are personal.
That's
I don't
true.
mind. It's like when people say, according to you, that's normally who's being accorded to when I'm the one speaking, but
True.
what's your question, darling? I'm just picking on you. I love you. You're adorable. What's your question?
My question is, in recent light of the amazing news today
In light
for
of the
you,
amazing news, yes.
do you have a special someone that you're thinking of, maybe?
Oh, yes, I have a special
Yes?
someone that I'm
Oh,
thinking of, yeah.
that's very
My
exciting.
partner's name is Brandon. In fact, you guys that may have been here, does anyone remember when I was last at this con about 2-3 years ago? Okay, do you remember that I had all of you say happy birthday to a friend of mine in Japan? That's who it is. He came back 2 years ago, and we've been together ever since.
Oh,
and
awesome. Well, I'm very happy for you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
I know. He's awesome. He speaks Japanese fluently, so when I get to meet other Seiyu, they're like, oh, hey, they open up because somebody speaks their language, It's hard to be in another country where no one speaks your language, so you tend to be kind of shy. I know I would be. But he'll sit there and he'll say something and be like, baby, tell them you're Japanese, because I know just enough Japanese to get myself in deep trouble. And quick story I'll tell you because it's adorable, and I'll get to your question. But we were at a con together, and we were in the green room, and the Japanese guests were all kind of there with their interpreters, and they were very nice, but they weren't really engaging much because no one spoke Japanese but their interpreters, and interpreters will they don't take the initiative. They'll wait till someone comes up to them, so it's not like, so the Japanese are kind of talking to themselves and, seeming a little shy. And then Brandon's like, we're going to go over and we're going to welcome him to this con and say hi. And he did. And they just lit up. They're like, oh. And they start talking. And I'm like, that's my man. And he's like, baby, come over here. Now, I had just learned earlier in the day the super hip Japanese slang term, azas. Which you have to say just like that, azas. That's a super cool, street way of saying thank you. It's arigatou gozaimasu. It's the first and last sounds of that compound thing just smashed together. So we don't really have an equivalent, but it's super informal. Now, the first thing I said to them when Brandon was like, baby, tell them you're Japanese, was, watashi wa nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu demo matsu jouzo ji arimasen, which means roughly, in very, 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 very super formal language, I do speak a little bit of Japanese, but I'm not very good at it yet. And their response in their best English was, oh, you sound so good. And I went, azaz. Crack them up. Because it's the equivalent of addressing someone in Shakespearean English and then following it up with bitches. So they all cracked up, and the rest of the con, every time I saw them, they're like, hey, azaz. It was the thing. It was awesome. So, yes, darling, what's your question?
Hi. I was curious, what has been your most memorable or strangest con or fan experience?
Con or fan experience? Well, not here. Nothing here ever happens weird or off. No, that is actually true. The weirdest experience, I'm kind of a bizarre person, you may have noted. So my threshold for weird or bizarre is really, really high, and I notice that what tends to freak out other people, my family, for example, doesn't even register on me as being the least bit bizarre. So it's really funny how, my mom will watch anime, and I realize it's like showing someone who has never looked at art before a Picasso. So she's like, well, is that a face? I don't even know what that is. What is that thing there? That's the shadow of his chin on his neck. She never recognizes my voice. She's like, I feel terrible. I'm your own mother. I'm like, I'm an amazing actor. Yeah, because you can't recognize, whatever. It's just because she's so out of her element and that kind of thing. But she's sort of she's a good little church lady. She's one of those people that's like, oh, I love you, but all this is just weird. Well, it's interesting, as she likes to say, which we all know is mom's way of saying,
My mom too.
I don't know what the hell this is. Get me out of here right now. So I think the oddest experience that I've ever had, or the ones that I remember anyway, are the ones where I'm very at home at a con, by the way. I love being around fans and cosplayers and other voice actors and Japanese guests, all of it. I love this. I go crazy. I run to the dealer's room buying, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy that. I belong here. And it is truly, genuinely one of the best things I get about what I get to do for a living, because I get to travel and meet all you awesome people that otherwise I'd never get a chance to. I live in Texas. There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of color and festivities in Texas. It's just of any place. I like to travel, and so what's fun to me is when I go to a con and it'll be mixed, like they'll be sharing the space with, like, say, a tax assessor's con, or there was a rodeo going on at one of them. That was the funniest, because I had this bizarre moment of clarity where I was walking through and I was hearing all these, like, guys in 10-gallon hats and, like, belt buckles and with the spurs and the do-do-do-do-do. I mean, I shouldn't make fun of them. I mean, that's what they do, and God love them for it. They're just as passionate about rodeo as we are about anime and comic books and stuff like that, right? But they totally didn't get this world of, guys in cat ears and girls in school uniforms, and they were like, so throughout the entire walk to my room, I must have heard a dozen times the following phrase being thrown back and forth. What the hell are you supposed to be? Shot back with, well, what the hell are you supposed to be? It's like both sides did not understand each other's cosplay. But by the end of that con, there were, like, cowboys getting pictures with giant mechs, and, like, it was the best thing ever. There was another convention that was on top of, like, it was a diocese meeting or something. So there were, like, priests and nuns and bishops and stuff who were very classy about it. I mean, they've seen a lot in their career, I'm sure. So, well, maybe not the nuns, but they tend to, whatever. I understand the appeal of just kind of squirreling yourself away. But either way, they were kind of walking around, and I just remember seeing this cute little girl that was dressed she was dressed as something from Trinity Blood. It was very ornate costumes, and she was like, what are you supposed to be? Who are you? And this little old nun just goes, oh, honey, I'm really a nun. And the girl just goes, wow. Cutest thing I've ever seen. Moments like that stick in my head, but nothing really. I've never had, like, a fan be weird. I've had people squeal when they see me and drop to the floor, which that's weird. But I've also gotten kind of used to it, which is also weird. What a terrible thing to get used to. I'm like, oh yeah, wait, no one's dropped on the floor today. What kind of day is this? But it's not, the moments I remember when kind of the culture clash, when it's like the tax assessors going, what the hell is going on? I'm scared. All these people are having fun. Fun frightens me. I'm going to go to my room now and cry into my $6 beer. So thank you, darling.
Thank you for answering my question.
It's okay, you can clap. Everyone's like, hello.
Hello.
Like your shirt.
Thank you. It's my favorite shirt. When you were little or a child, did you expect that this was what you would be doing as an adult?
No idea. It didn't hit me. So I was an actor as a kid. Once I kind of found my voice, my speech therapist who had ties to the theater was like, well, you need to pursue this. I'd like to see you get on stage because I think it will help you cope with your speaking problem. As you'll notice, I've been making up for lost time ever since. So I did this. I acted on stage a lot from the ages of about 9 to about 20 or thereabouts, and loved it. I loved everything about it. I've been in a lot of plays and stuff, did a couple of on-camera stuff. It was all very small time, but very enriching, and I was very grateful for the experience. And then that time came when I had to sort of decide what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. We all know that terrible time, right? When you're like 17, 18, 19, and everyone's like, you have to decide now, no going back, which is such BS, by the way. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So I decided to pursue another path. I didn't want to pursue acting because I'd done it long enough that I kind of felt like, well, I really enjoy it, but I think I just want to do it on the side. I don't think it takes a very courageous person, a very crazy and courageous person to kind of try to make a living in acting. It's a very, very difficult profession to pay the bills with. And I had the crazy down pat, but not the courage so much. So I pursued, more a safer route. I actually had a bunch of 9-to-5 jobs to pay the rent, and I thought that's what being an adult was. I'm like, oh well, I hate my job, but I'm paying the rent, right? I'm grown up, and that was everyone I knew was like, oh, everyone. Well, we get together on the weekends and have a few drinks and complain about how horrible our jobs are, but we throw our passions into our hobbies, our avocations, be it music or writing or cosplaying or what have you. And then, so I didn't act really for the better part of a decade when I happened to, and I'll tell the story even though I've told it before because I think it's germane to your question. So I was approached by a friend of mine who worked at Funimation. And Christopher Bevins is an incomparable human being. I love him. He's incredibly creative. He's also a taskmaster of a director. And he just called me up out of the blue one day. We'd been friends for several years, and I was aware of what he did, working for the Dragon Ball Z folks, which I thought was super cool, because I grew up on that. And he just kind of approached me and called me up one day and said, hey, so I'm working on this show, and I'd kind of like to try your voice out on this character, because none of the usual suspects are working out. And my line producer's kind of breathing down my neck about always using the same people, so I need some fresh blood. And I was like, oh my God, you're so thoughtful. No. Because the idea of taking up the mantle of that profession again terrified me. And it was voice acting, which I'd never done. I mean, I'd always done stage stuff and a little bit of on camera, so voice acting I had no frame of reference for, and I thought, well, I'm gonna be terrible, so thank you, but no thank you. And he called me again the very next day and proceeded to act like we hadn't had the conversation we did the day before. Like, hey, so I'm working on this show and I want to try you out. I'm like, no, the answer's still no, Bevins, thank you, but I don't think I'd be worth your time. Call me up the next day. So I'm working on this show, and this goes on for 2 weeks, where I just keep saying thank you, but no thank you, and he gets scarier and scarier and scarier with each refusal, until what started with, hey, I'm working on this show, I'd love you to work on it with you, or I'd love you to come in and try out, became, if you don't come into audition, I'm going to break your goddamn kneecaps. He's like, if I have to drive you in, throw you in the booth, and hold you at gunpoint, you're going to audition. He's like, look, you're not going to get the part. I'll just be frank with you. In fact, it's better if you suck, because then I can tell my line producer, see, get off my back. All the new people suck. I have to use the old ones. So come in, you'll blow, we'll laugh, and never speak of it again, okay? Help me out. So under protest, I went in on a Sunday afternoon going, it's my Sunday afternoon. I got to go. Oh, I only have 2 days off from my crappy job, and I got to spend one of them doing this thing for my friend who won't leave me the hell alone. It's totally like, I got to go voice act now. Which in retrospect blows my mind to think of my attitude. I was like, I'm just not going to be good at this. Go in. It is a 4-hour-long audition. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever auditioned on a camera or stage stuff, but you got maybe 2 minutes before out comes the shepherd hook, and poof, you're gone. And you'll never hear from those people again. If that's how it usually goes, about 90% of the time for us actors. So for it to be a 4-hour-long audition, and we were actually recording to animation, I was working from the dub script, which is a very different creature than other types of script. There's a lot of technical jargon included that I had to get my head around. So, okay, CT React means, all right, good to know, Bevins, thank you. Stop yelling at me. And it was really stressful. And the character, by the way, was super emotional. So right off the bat, he's screaming and crying. And I'm like, Jesus, I don't know what I'm doing. And so 4 hours this goes by. And Bevins, the guy that I'd known for several years, who was the sweetest guy in the world, the angriest I'd ever seen him get was when we'd bitch about who would win in a fight, Batman or Iron Man. Iron Man. And now here he is just being like Stanley Kubrick in the booth going, no, more emotion. I've got to feel you rip your heart out of your chest. Come on, man, come on. And I'm like, okay. Yes, that's it. Awesome. More crying, more fear. And so I'm just sweating bullets. Then it's all over. I come out of the booth, and he's like, all right, out of the booth. He has a bunch of papers for me to sign, which I stupidly thought were NDAs, because I'm working with stuff that's not been released yet, so I have to sign non-disclosure agreements. We call them NDAs. My fault, I didn't read them very closely. No. So I'm just like, and I glibly say, how do you people get anything done at Funimation if it takes you 4 hours to audition every single part? And his response was, oh, honey, it didn't. The audition was 10 minutes. We've actually just recorded the first 6 episodes, and you just signed a contract, so screw you, you're an actor. To which my response was, you son of a bitch. And then we started recording that show for the better part of the next 6-8 months, and suddenly other people were like, oh, you're pretty good, I want to get you in. I'm like, no, I don't, I'm not a voice actor. I work in marketing. Okay. And then slowly I started going, this is fun. Wow, this kind of takes me back to when I was acting as a kid and really enjoying it. And okay. And I do love anime, so it's kind of cool to be part of that. And all right, and then after 2 years of kind of doing it on the side, someone said, hey, do you want to just do it full time? Just do it full time. You'll be up here all the time. And I'm like, no, I couldn't possibly. I'm used to having a job where you have your, insurance is taken care of, and it's a 9 to 5, so your paycheck's, assured every 2 weeks, and it's the same amount of money. And no, I can't go freelance. That's terrifying to me. All right, yeah, I'll do it. And I went freelance, and it's been amazing ever since. I've been extremely lucky. I do not deserve the luck I have had in my career. Because, just to recap, if anyone ever asked me, like, how do you become an actor? I'm like, well, try my route. Don't do anything for 10 years, and then when someone gives you a chance, turn it down and just wait for them to force you to do it. Worked for me. So that's kind of my story. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. I know I took us on a very, very long journey on that question,
It was
but yeah.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Good question. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Just to say, thank God your friend made you take that audition.
Right? Because otherwise I'd be a miserable bastard working in a cube farm job that I wasn't very good at. I may not be the greatest voice actor in the world, but I'm better at voice acting than I am in marketing, I can tell you that.
I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of One Piece, and I'm a huge fan of you as Eneru.
Inaru. Do you know Inaru was actually my first part as a full-time voice actor?
Really?
Yeah, he never shut up, so they kept coming in like, you can only play him if you go full-time because we need too many hours from you, and we need it in a week, so you can't come on the weekends, you gotta come in every day. And I'll never forget going, I don't know if I could do this, that's going full-time, and then I got my first Funimation check for playing Inaru, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be all right. So Inaru was very emotional for me because, one, he's really fun. I love playing the big, ridiculous, over-the-top villains. I mean, he's such a douchebag, that guy, but he's so much fun. He's one of those villains you love to hate, and he's got lightning powers and abs of steel and giant hoop drums on his back. I don't know how he carries those around, but whatever. She didn't even ask your question. And I'm like, hey, and blah, blah, blah. Go on.
I just wanted to say, if you ever, with the character Eneru, if you ever experienced a time when you would just like jump into his character at any time.
Yes, in fact, to keep me in that voice a lot, Mike McFarlane, who was recording the bulk of One Piece at the time and was a dear friend of mine, thought the Inaru voice was hysterical because he was really big and ridiculous, and everything he says was like, yes, I'm just going to talk, yet this is my inside voice. What's wrong? And he thought it was funny, so we started coming up with this weird routine where he would just make me in the booth say the weirdest things to warm up. Like, say, Michael, in Inaru's voice, say fat cheeseburgers. Fat cheeseburgers! And be like, all right, there it is. All right, line 4, kind of thing. And we started doing this thing where, so I do dinner with Mike all the time, because he's a dear friend, and used to be just about every Sunday we'd go out to eat together, and we'd do all sorts of, we'd play horrible pranks on our waitstaff, like cry eating. I've told you that. I'll mention that later. But one of the things he loves most to see me do, and it just became a routine, is to go through the drive-thru, usually of Jack in the Box, anywhere near Funimation. There's one within a couple of miles of the studio, and to do that voice, to order as in a room. So the routine, he's got that laugh, right? The ah-ha-ha laugh, which is so much fun to do. It's such a barrel-chested, blah, laugh. So the routine would be to drive through the drive-thru, and it's so great late at night, too. We're talking 2 in the morning to do it. We're like, hey, sir, Will and Jack in the Box, can I take your order? We're like, yes, I would like a number 6 with curly fries and an Oreo cookie shake. Will there be anything else? Yeah. No, I'm good. And so I did that all the time. I would order, we'd go out to eat on lunch break once and actually sat down at this little Greek place, and Mike was like, I dare you to do the Inaru voice the entire time. So the guy comes over, yes, I would like the lamb kebabs, please. Hold the onions. And the guys just act like, all right, guy's got a weird voice, not going to say anything about it. I want a tip. So it's really funny how I started getting depressed by the fact of how very unimpressed people that worked anywhere near Funimation that were in the service industry didn't care. I could have driven through the drive-thru naked on a rhinoceros, and they'd be like, do you need napkins and straws, sir? Because they're just so used to voice actors like us being assholes with them. They're like, oh, it's another one of the voice actors. Hey, Mr. Tatum. I'm like, oh, he knows me. So yes, Inaru voice comes out a lot now. So thank you, darling. Thank you. I love me some One Piece.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello,
You are adorable. Can I just say that? You're adorable. You're adorable.
2 quick questions.
2 quick questions. All right.
The first one is, can you do a line from Black Butler of Sebastian?
Is that an order?
No, it's a question.
I love it. See, here, let this be a lesson to all of you ladies. If you want me to do something in the Sebastian voice, don't let that be your first question, because you will lose all sense of where you were going. My first question is do the Sebastian voice, and I do it. My second question is I gotta go sit down. That's always been the case. I'm just saying. I just, from experience, I know that. What's
Okay. I'm like one of your biggest fans, and this is the second question. May I get a hug?
May you get a hug? You're so tiny, I can't refuse. That's awesome. Don't get tangled in my shoelaces. Oh my God. What? Here you go. High five. Just bam. There you go. Just boom. There you go. Did you see the spirit bomb that just passed between us?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now it's a party. Now it's 8 episodes of us screaming at each other.
Hello. Hi. Is this
Hi.
thing on?
Would you like a hug too? All right, let's.
I would love a hug. I'm not gonna lie.
You have to be that tiny, and you have to be wearing a Little Red Riding Hood outfit, or the outfit with the ears and everything for hug. That's my rule.
Lamentably, I can't do any of that. Okay, this is a question more towards the writing aspect of.
Cool.
Because I know you've written. I know for a fact you at least written for Steins Gate.
I've written a lot of stuff.
Yeah. What is kind of the process for dubbing for, I guess, writing for an anime? Like, because you don't speak Japanese, so does someone give you here's the dub text?
So here's the quick answer, and if you'd like one more detailed, there is a writer's panel tomorrow that you're welcome to come to, and I can speak about it more in depth. But the adaptive writing process this is how Funimation does it. Every studio is a little different. Funimation has like a tiered system. We're all freelance. We don't work for Funimation, but we work with them contractually. So Funimation, basically, we're contractors. Now, John Bergmeyer, many of you know as Tien from the Dragon Ball days, is the head writer of Funimation, which means Funimation comes to him and says, adapt. And he goes to the first tier of writers, his lead writers, of which I am one, Monica Real is one, Jamie Markey is another, there are several others now. Our job as lead writers is to take the show, watch it backwards and forwards, really get to know it, do as much research as we possibly can from materials that are available, while it's also at the same time it is being translated by a team of translators that are also contracted to Funimation. The translations come to us, we kind of add that into everything we've been learning about the show. And then we are given a team of writers, a piece to work with. So I'll have 1 or 2 writers to work with me. Sometimes I just adapt the entire show myself. But a lead writer's job is to then take the translation that they've been given and the materials from Japan they've been given, the actual animation and everything, and the term list and all that. So the stuff we cannot take liberties with. We can't change that name of that move, that technique, or the name of this place. Those have to stay intact. And the licensors sometimes are very strict about that. Sometimes they'll be fine with kind of giving you, leave to be like, well, whatever you think an English-speaking audience would respond most to. Though we try to be very true to everything we're given. And then I'll write, usually say the first 2-3 episodes, establish the tone of the adaptation, and then go to my team of writers and say, all right, look at these first 3 scripts. I'm going to give you episode 4 to write, so make sure you watch the others so you try to match my tone. And then I will then, throughout the process, write episode 6, episode 10, whatever. I'm just throwing out weird numbers. I might write the odd number of episodes and then finish the last 2 or 3 of the entire series, while meanwhile going back and editing everyone else's stuff that they've turned on the show to make sure that it all sounds like it was written by me, because you don't want a show that's like, oh, tonight's episode brought to you by this guy, and oh, this episode brought to you by this person. It needs to all sound coherent. A writer's job, I think they've done their best when they are invisible. And the characters are what you remember, and not necessarily, oh, the writing was really, really good. I understand when people say the writing was really good or really bad. That's awesome, but I think if writers have done their job, the actors are the ones, and the characters and the original material is what carries the day. And our job is to just kind of give it a home in another language, to make it belong there for an English-speaking audience, and to not screw it up in the process. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Awesome.
Just one little quick one. What
Sure.
was a show that like you said, you sometimes have a team, but you've adapted completely yourself? What's just one example of one you adapted yourself?
The show running right now on simuldubbing is Assassination Classroom. Does anyone know Assassination Classroom? Yeah, I've been writing that one from top to bottom myself, just because it's a simuldub, so we get a script a week rather than like 6 in 1 week to adapt. So I've been writing that show from the beginning, and it's awesome. It's actually some of the most fun I've had adapting scripts. If you haven't seen it, Assassination Classroom, check it out. Sonny Strait plays the main guy, Koro Sensei. He was Krillin and many other things besides, but Krillin was his big role. But I swear to God, like if anyone on this planet was born to play Koro Sensei in English, it was Sonny Strait, and everyone else is amazing too. So, Assassination Classroom, that's one.
Thank you.
Thank you for your awesome question. Hello.
Hi. You're one of my favorite voice actors, so I was curious, do you have a favorite voice actor?
Me? No, I'm kidding. It's hard. Again, it's hard to play favorites, but I will. There have been a number of
one of your favorite.
Oh no,
voice
it's all
actors,
right. There is. I do have an answer for you though. Most of the actors I know in the business are super cool people. Acting is one of those businesses where like you don't get very far if you're a jerk. I mean, because that's the thing. Like anybody. I get a lot of work because I'm nice and I'm easy to work with, or at least I try to be. And I remember the receptionist's name when I go into a studio. You know, be that guy. The people that come and go, I'm going to be a jerk because I'm amazing and I'm a voice actor, kiss my feet, or just laughed out of the booth. Because there's always someone better than you that's easier to work with that they'd prefer to hire. So the truth is most voice actors I meet are super cool. Like not only are they awesome, you know, at their job and with coworkers and colleagues, like everyone I've met has been so generous with their time and their insight into, you know, their take on the craft. They have a great sense of humor and they take it all they don't take themselves too seriously, but they take the responsibility of bringing characters up to life very seriously. So I really kind of, all the voice actors I've ever met, I mean, have been my heroes. But let me speak for a moment about someone very dear to my heart who recently passed away, the late, great Christopher Lee, who recently passed away just last week, in fact, at 93. Now, granted, he'd lived a good, long life, but I was not ready to see him go. I always hoped I'd get to meet him one day at a con, because he still played the con circuit, by the way. Like, in his 80s, he was still like, hello, you know. Aaron Dismuke, who was Al in the original Full Metal Alchemist panel, met him and like got told that he thought he sounded like he had an Oklahoma accent, which is not something you say to a Texas person unless you are Christopher Lee. But all these facts about Christopher Lee's life that I've known forever because I grew up watching his movies, you know, rerun on television when I was little and used to love like Dracula and all that. And then he started, and he's never not been relevant. Christopher Lee, a few facts about Christopher Lee for those of you that don't only know him as, say, Saruman or as Count Dooku or a few other voices you've heard in a lot of Tim Burton movies, holds the Guinness Book of World Records for being the single most prolific film actor of all time in any culture, in any language, across the board. He has over 200, in 2010, at the age of 88, he had over 244 film credits to his name, at least a dozen more that he was not credited with, and he had 5 more years to make 12 more movies, which he went on to do. So he's still, it's going to be a long time before anyone breaks that record. He was in Lord of the Rings as Saruman, of course. What few people know is that he actually knew J.R.R. Tolkien and like could speak every language that in Middle Earth, and like he became friends with him. And years ago, like it was just one of those things where he knows the book backwards and forwards because he read it every year of his life. It's one of his favorite pieces of literature. He'd done all these amazing. He was like a Nazi hunter in Africa after the war. Like Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond. He was his nephew or his cousin by marriage, and he was the reason, Christopher Lee, I'm not kidding you, was at least partially the inspiration for the character of James Bond. And when they were going to bring James Bond to film for the first time, long before Sean Connery was ever thought about it, Ian Fleming was pulling to have Christopher Lee play the role of Bond because Christopher Lee was Bond. Like, that was his life. The stuff that he did during the war for Winston Churchill is still classified information. He also spoke 5 languages fluently, 6 languages conversationally, and 3 languages moderately. One of them being Swedish. Stop and think about that for a moment. There's a story about why, too. He was dating this woman at the time who was like the daughter of a count in Germany, and the count didn't like him, didn't like Lee. He was an actor, didn't care for him, whatever, blah, 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 and told him, like, I'm not gonna, you know, if you get the blessing of the King of Sweden, then you can marry my daughter. Lee got the blessing of the King of Sweden. That's badass. Define. And like he did all this before he was 25, and 25 he's like, well, I'll try acting now. At 88 years old, one more cool fact, and then I'll let you sit down because you're like, I don't care about any of this, Tatum. I really don't.
No, that's awesome.
Christopher Lee was in a heavy metal album based on the life of Charlemagne at 88. So at 88 years old, he became the oldest guy to be on the Billboard charts for an album. And it was a heavy metal album. 2 reasons that he loved being part of that project. 1, he dug heavy metal. Christopher Lee, an 88-year-old man, thought heavy metal was badass. And because the project was about the life of King Charlemagne, he thought it'd be interesting because he's related to King Charlemagne. He was a descendant of King Charlemagne. So Christopher Lee is my hero, and I miss him terribly, though I never met him. So that's the answer to your question.
Thank you.
The more you know. I'm such a little Wikipedia article. I'm like, and in 1947 he did this, and you're like, hello, darling. How are you?
Hello. As for your characters with accents, whether it be like Sebastian or France, where do you get your inspiration from it? For it?
It depends. Accents kind of come easily to me. Some do, some others do not. But I grew up watching a lot of BBC, especially Doctor Who and like Faulty Towers and like, right? Yeah, I love. If I can say Doctor Who and get a scream from the audience, I know I'm among civilized people. But I grew up watching BBC, like all these comedies, like Faulty Towers and Are You Being Served and Doctor Who, of course. And so I just sort of grew up. And British I fall into very easily because the speech pathologist that I had for years that I mentioned earlier was British. And so she would teach me how to speak in Britain. So everyone else, I'm from Texas, but no one ever suspects it because I sound very sort of mid-Atlantic or, sort of neutral. But I fall into English very, very easily because that's sort of how I learned to talk. And everyone goes, there's something to be said for the British voice. There's something about there's something about the British voice that can turn any 5 into a 10. Like, I'm like, 5 in low light and loose clothes, but the minute I'm like, hello, they're like, poof, instant 10. When you think about it, they like ran the world for like hundreds of years, and I think it was the voice. People just, when a Brit asks you to do something, you're like, sure, just say my name. I just imagine like Eddie Izzard has that great thing where he's like all the British like ran like the colonials went around and like running everything because they would just go to people in that voice and be like, hello native person, how are you? I love what you're doing with your hair, the feathers, wonderful. Do you like these beads? Do you like these shiny beads? There you go. You take these, yes, and I'll take all the land from here to the horizon. Thank you. Only the British voice can get away with saying that. French, I speak French, so French, the accent came kind of easily because French, I just learned French. My grandmother spoke French fluently, and she had a terrible accent. So I worked to kind of correct it. She was from Alabama, so she spoke French with an Alabama accent, which is adorable. Comment tu la français? And I'm like, what? She's got this weird Alabama lilt in there, and it's like, comme tu veux also. Blah, 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 I'm screwing up. But anyway, but yeah, so that accents are tricky sometimes because you have to focus so much on keeping yourself in the accent that you have less energy to dedicate to the actual performance. So you have to be very careful, and if ever you are attempting a character that speaks in an accent, you have to make sure that you have the accent down pat. Like learning a piano piece, you don't want to perform it until you've forgotten the notes, and it's just muscle memory. You learn the notes so you can forget them, as they say. And it's the same with learning an accent. Sometimes, though, an accent can free you up to do things in your performance you'd never do otherwise because it's so unlike your normal voice that you feel liberated by it. And
like
you can
the France laugh.
Like the France laugh, right? That was a total joke. We just did that because I thought Scott Sager, the director, was daring me to do the French laugh as long as I could. And I did. And he was like, awesome, we're using that. That's a take. I'm like, wait, that's actually going in? Oh, I know French people. They're going to hate me now. They love it. They think it's hysterical. So, thank you, darling. Thank you. Love your outfit, by the way. Well done. Hello. I love this poor man here is working his butt off, just like changing the mic up for everybody. It's so awesome. Thank you, sir. I love you. Round of applause for this man in the front row who's the tech for this room. We love him. We love him. Yes, Mario, Super Mario.
I hope his name is the Pole Master. Like, that's his job title.
Pole Master's just one of his jobs. He's like Christopher Lee. He has 1,000 things he can do.
All right, a very quick question. What is your most liked aspect about a bowl of mac and cheese?
My what? My something aspect about a bowl of mac. I heard
Your
everything but
most liked or favorite. Want to avoid using the favorite word around
the.
here.
I see. You're playing that game.
About a bowl of mac and cheese.
So what's the thing I like the most about mac and cheese?
Yeah. But fancier.
Fancy mac and cheese. Well, I like fancy mac and cheese. You know what I love? Mac and cheese on leg day.
Oh.
Because mac and cheese on leg day, you can stuff your face with that. When you work out on leg day, because leg day is, for those of you that have ever been in a gym or like work out, like leg day is the hardest day there is, and you have to do it, or you really, none of the other workouts aren't going to be as beneficial to you. Legs, it's all about legs. Not that I haven't made like huge legs, but like you got to work them out, and afterwards I'm always like, okay, let's go get some mac and cheese. Because your body, at that moment, you have about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, where your body is like Doc Brown's like converter in the second Back to the Future movies. It will turn trash into muscle, like if you eat it quick enough. So it's like, awesome, mac and cheese, lobster mac and cheese with mustard and whipped cream and coffee. I don't care, just put it all on there. It's a garbage bowl. That's my favorite thing about mac and cheese.
Thank you.
You waited in line so long to ask that question.
I'm giving you I'm really loud. I'm giving you the 10-minute warning right now. You have 10 more minutes. I'm over here.
Oh, sorry, I'm like, where is she? I hear her. Yes?
10 more minutes, yeah.
10 more minutes, all right.
Yes.
So I'll try to be, we're not going to get to everybody. Okay, so lightning round. Quick question, I'll give you a quick answer. We all know that's not going to happen. All right.
And my name is Jordan, and I had to say, you're one simply hell of a butler.
Oh, I thank you so much. I'm simply one hell of a butler. Everyone calm down.
My question is, what is your favorite moment in Black Butler, and will you be looking forward to reprising the role as Sebastian Michaelis for Book of Circus?
My favorite thing about Black Butler is really just the whole concept of it. I love that it's kind of a weird sort of take on the Faustian legend, and I love the sort of the depth psychology that goes into the fact that Sebastian is who he is because CL, he's in some ways, though he's real and a demon, in some ways like the facade he adopts in order to eat is a reflection, is a sort of a projection of CL's unconscious. That's why he looks like his dad and all sorts of things. I love the psychology of that, and I love that it kind of balances the dark and the goofy so well. That's my favorite thing. And absolutely, Sebastian is one of those characters I will always jump at the chance to reprise. So I'm looking forward to the possibility of getting to revisit him.
Thank you.
I call him You Know Who. That's my name for him now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I've seen like a lot of your YouTube videos of your panels, and I was wondering, since you say that you have all your crazy characters up in your head, I'm wondering, do they ever come out sometimes in your head and like comment about something or about some things and like?
Oh, frequently.
Yeah. Like, could you give me
they come
an
out there.
example?
Sometimes I'll purposely adopt a character to be like, oh, this is going to be a really weird exchange. Kyoya can help me, so like Kyoya will come out. Yeah, sometimes, often, like Sebastian comes out whenever I feel like I need to be suave, because again, the British voice, people just go, oh, okay, sure, whatever you need. France sometimes come out. One time I was in Montreal. Excuse me, Montreal, and I suddenly find myself surrounded by French-speaking people, and I just brain farted and could remember none of my French. I could understand everyone perfectly, and I would but I also might have had a couple of drinks at this point, but my first completely wrong-headed and incorrect reaction to try to speak with people that were native French speakers was to just speak in English with a ridiculous French accent. So someone would be like, est-ce que vous comprenez français? And they'd be like, oh oui, just a little bit. And they'd be like, excuse me? Excusez-moi? I'm like, yes, just a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm not actually speaking French, am I? Oh God. And so they're like, you need to drink a little more. And I had more drinks. And see, just like saying it, like they didn't even say that. They said, the accent. So sometimes like when in a pinch, I'm like, and it's so funny. It's kind of like the same instinct we have when we're trying to talk with someone that doesn't speak our language, but maybe just has a little bit. And if they don't understand, we talk at them louder, like that makes a difference in their comprehension. And it's the same principle. I'm like, well, maybe if I just said it in your accent, you'll understand. And they're like, no, actually, I don't understand. What the hell's wrong with you? So yeah, that happens a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Next.
Hello. No one's back. What were the animes that sort of got you into them, and sort of throughout the years, what were one of your most favorite or memorable animes that you watched?
So my first encounter with anime was as a kid when they first brought it, like it was broadcasting. I didn't even think of it as something that came from Japan, and it was marketed as something that was produced here, and I didn't know the difference. And it was, but I grew up watching like Voltron, and like Battle of the Planets, and the original Robotech, Macross, stuff like that. Like I grew up watching that, thinking it was the coolest thing ever, and I actually credit it for giving me a much broader taste in things because I was used to watching cartoons that were, American made, or sometimes French made, and that came over here, but that were directed more towards kids. So it was a very different kind of storytelling. It was very episodic, very like, hey, we're gonna have fun, and then all our problems are solved in about 20 minutes. But anime was different. It was these long, multi-episode arcs, and they often dealt with things that you didn't find, subject material that you didn't find in children's shows. So I really kind of developed this taste for broader, more adult, and I don't mean like adult, like hey, but I mean like certainly more mature storytelling style because of anime. Over the years, what got me back into it was watching Cowboy Bebop, which I think is brilliant. I still go back and watch it all the time. One of my red letter moments in this business was getting to meet Steve Bloom at a con, who is actually one of the most exemplary human beings I've ever met, and now he's a dear friend. But I was like, and he's so awesome guy. And there's a lot of animes. I mean, I think Steins Gate, professionally, Steins Gate is probably the one that's meant the most to me because I both was the lead adaptive writer for the adaptation and also the lead actor, which was crazy. But it's also a very, very emotional show and very real in some ways. And it changed me. It changed my take on the craft of both writing and on acting. And it was insane. And I'll always I'm not the same man that I was before I started working on Steins Gate. And it's a good thing, I think, largely. So, thank you. Thank you very much. How are we doing on time?
This is probably the last question. We have 3 minutes left. I know. I apologize.
I'm so sorry, guys. What you got?
All right, so I was gonna ask you about like news on Tokyo Ghoul and all that because it's everyone's favorite show.
Yes.
But since we're short on time and I don't want to like mess up everybody's problems and everything, that didn't make any sense. But my sister, she wasn't able to make it today, and her favorite character that you've done of all time is Kyoya. And
shocking.
Yeah. She wanted you to say a line or some for her, and so.
I don't. Kyoya lines are so weird because he doesn't really have a lot of zingers, and the ones that he does have are. I'm like, I don't know who this is, so I'm not sure if you can always pay me with your body is a good thing to say to her.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's her favorite. That's her favorite. That's her
is
favorite.
Is that appropriate? Okay.
That's her favorite.
Because I don't want to be like, oh, she's 5.
She's 18.
I'm like,
she's 18.
You just made me say that to a 5-year-old.
She's 18.
All right, we'll do that. Are you ready? All right. I love. By the way, I love that Ray is staring at me through your phone.
Yeah.
He's like Aqua Kyoya.
I'm gonna autograph it later.
I'm gonna autograph it later. All right. I'll remember that. All right, so you can always pay me with your body. Okay,
Thank you.
Let me just, all of you that are cheering at that line right now, if anyone ever said that to you in real life, I would hope you would have the wherewithal to kick them in the balls. Like, that's not okay. Kyoya's different, but anyway. But thank you, darling. Thank you. I appreciate it. So is that it?
We have 2 minutes. You want to do a super duper quick question?
Okay,
Let's do it.
Super fast one.
Can I just have a hug?
A hug? Oh, God, yes, come here. You people don't follow instructions very well. All right, you, question, go.
Okay, I was going to ask, what was your most memorable moment during Steins Gate? But
my most memorable moment during Steins Gate was the scene in, I believe it's episode 13 or 14. They all kind of run together. Is it 12? No, it's not 12. It's not 12. 12 is the turning point. It's after that when he's in the back seat of the car. And I don't want to give too much away, but it's an extraordinarily emotional moment where you suddenly see this character change dramatically, which is always the most rewarding, as acting and characters about change and watching someone kind of go through these vicissitudes of transformation. It's a very highfalutin word. But that I had been writing that character and performing him day in, day out for about 4 months at the time, and because there's a lot of overlap between the adaptation writing side and the recording process. So my day consisted of recording for 8 hours, because Okabe never shuts up. Part I was born to play, right? And then I would go home and write another 5 hours on an episode that was to be recorded a couple weeks down the road. So I never really had time to get away from Okabe. I never had time to really kind of slough off that skin and just be Michael again. So it got really super tense, and when that scene came around, which is a big emotional turning point for him, I just lost it in the booth and had a kind of a bit of a nervous breakdown, and it was really emotional and really difficult, and I had to be like literally a grown man sobbing and having to leave the booth and apologize to the crew. I'm like, I'm just gonna go and splash some water in my face and punch a mirror or something. And when I came back in to do, I figured we're going to have to do this take again. It's a very difficult scene to watch. The original Seiyu's performance is heartrending. And so writing that episode, weeks before, I was like, oh my God, I do not look forward to this moment because it is such a, oh my God. And I came back in the booth ready to do it again, and Colleen Klinkenbeard, the show's wonderful director, said, well, baby, I'm going to give you a choice. You can either do it again, if you feel up for it, or everything we got, even though it's you having a mental breakdown, totally works. We can keep that, and you'll never have to do this scene again. And I'm like, keep it. So if you want to hear me have a genuine, and I'm absolutely honest at this, if you want to hear J. Michael Tatum have a genuine emotional breakdown in the booth, watch Steins Gate. It's episode 13 or 14, but he's in the backseat of the car, and you'll know the scene when you hear it, because it's one of the... I think it's one of the best things I've done. It's also one of the most painful. So thank you that's a good question to end on. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for being patient with me and my rambling. Hey, Daru, sorry I didn't get to you. I love you. My heart to you. I do have a panel. Nice. I do have a panel tonight at 11 o'clock. It's my WTF 101 panel. It is 18 only. It does get really raunchy, so be prepared for that. But I also have other stuff. There's the Doctor Who, the Soldier Stories we're premiering or screening at 3 o'clock today. Please come to that. And I have autographs, so I'll see you guys there later.